It's 12:36, Thursday, August 8th, 2024. We have a meeting with the Sheriff's Office today to discuss, changes in the law on towing abandoned vehicles. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Green to explain what we're looking at.
All right, so I'm going to I'll answer any questions about like the tow process if you guys would like after, but I'm just going to kind of skip to what's changed.
Okay.
So, because it's kind of a convoluted process it is. So essentially, a deputy goes to get an abandoned vehicle, right? Shows up, discovers it's abandoned. They'll reach out to the owner if they can. They then tow the vehicle. Nickerson's is our current tow company that's towing all our abandons. Takes to the tow yard, and then they have to wait. There's a process of certified mail and so on and getting it back. But then essentially after, if it's not picked up or if the release is given to Nickerson's after 60 days, then essentially they would apply for title and car, and they would get the car, and they would either crush the car or sell the car, right? Was how it was operating. Unfortunately now, and I'm not too privy. I've heard different answers about how this came in effect. Apparently they made a law that down this last session, 49/1808, that changes that end process specifically. So now, essentially there is they made 49-1814 just for the record. It goes into giving law enforcement the ability to make appraisals, and it'll come into why here momentarily, which is already problematic because of the experience of our law enforcement. This isn't really well trained, so we're going to have to use something like Blue Book, or I've been told that NADA is a more accurate system. I haven't seen the system, but we'll look into it. And essentially, the deputy will say, is this over $750 or under $750 when worth and value? If it's under $750, not much change, and the burden actually doesn't become difficult at all. Essentially, after the 60 days, Nickerson's would just crush down the vehicle or at their earliest convenience and sell it for scrap. Right now, they're towing the vehicles for free because they get like $200 or depending on the rate for the scrap metal. Now, the problem with that is most vehicles, they've gotten more expensive, so a large number of them are over $750. So now what happens per the code and how they've changed it, there's a lot of different moving parts here. A fund is set up, and I'm 98% sure by how this is written, 49-1818, that it's actually ITD sets up this fund. And there's a fund that's set up, and all the proceeds from this vehicle sale will go to this fund. And then ITD, I believe, will then portion out for all the work, which is a lot, a grand total of $50 to our agency to reimburse this. It's pretty much negligible. And then to the tow company as well, $50. This creates massive problems long term because in this process, we have to store the vehicle for up to 60 days, and that's going to be paid, right? So it would be paid for Nickerson would get $45 a day, $55 a day, something like that, right? Depending on what they charge.
Who pays them?
Well, it should come from the vehicle. So it's either going to be the individual who comes and picks up the vehicle, if it's theirs, and that would be them, or they sell the vehicle or they scrap the vehicle and now go towards their costs. Now that is going to be the maximum they can charge. Now that
$45 a day is maximum?
No, 60 days. The amount per day, there's actually some variance there that isn't really dictated by law. I'm just giving you this similar rate we see in the valley. So now, however, the state has shifted the burden of all of these sales to us. So now the county sheriff's department, the county, because we sell the vehicles typically through the county, the sheriff's department, has to sell all these vehicles. Nickerson's no longer can. That's the big zinger of the law. So now it's going to be the burdens on us, and obviously we don't do this very regularly. So my problems I already foresee happening is that Nickerson's now has vehicles sitting there for 1 to 2 years based off how frequently I've seen these sales happen here. And we're just going to get piles of cars building up. And then I see that being very problematic for businesses because, well, we're not paying them for that either because you can only recoup the 60 days of storage. So it creates multiple problems on multiple fronts. So I reached out to Nickerson's and they said they're actually willing to continue doing it for us as stands right now. I don't know if that's going to be the case in 2 years and it is going to start a problem that's going to be hard to catch up from. So then comes into the money of it. We have to, as a county, establish a system to where when these cars are sold and they have to be posted for sale, there's some regulations on that I can get you at a later point. Posted for sale at a certain time frame in the paper twice, I believe, in 15 days, something in that regard. Then let's say we sell said vehicles. We're obviously taking on the burden as the county doing the work of doing all of this, and then we try to recruit Nickerson's for the value of the storage, which frankly most will just go to Nickerson's probably in that case after 60 days of storage fees. But then, and here's the kicker, any overages and additional money that we get from the sale, we actually give back to the state in totality, except for a $50 refund.
Now, is it directing the sheriff's department to do this, or is directing the county to do this?
So it's my understanding is it's directing the sheriff's department, I believe, is the only one. We have to essentially do the sale how we would always do the sale and everything else.
Like a sheriff's sale?
Yeah, but how we've been doing it, like the sheriff's vehicles, has been done through the county. So how we go about doing that, I don't have any idea if we don't use the county to do so.
Okay. Well, one of the things is there's a sheriff's sale,
Mm-hmm.
which you guys have your own sheriff's sale,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a surplus sale. And the county surplus sale is different than the sheriff's sale
Mm-hmm.
because that's county. So that's what my question would be is we'll ask Ben about that. The second part of it is the appraisal part is how, this is not very well thought through by the legislation, because if the car's broke down on the side of the road, there's a big variable of what it's going to cost to get it fixed. So every car is going to be a $750 car. We don't have keys for it. We can't tell what's in, why it's on the side of the road. Most likely because it's not running. So I mean, this kind of throws that into the whole mix of it. So maybe we need to talk to Ben about this and maybe set up some kind of a ordinance, or I don't know what we can do, because this is going to be a problem.
And I 100% agree with you with all those problems you just raised. That's why across the state they're experiencing massive blowback, and now it's up to us to.
Well, we got
Yeah.
to do it, so we got to figure it out. But that's.
So there's a couple just at the moment Nickerson's are willing to continue on. Another thought would be using the county yard as essentially a tow yard, and then us doing the sale of proceeds through there. I will have to talk to the sheriff if this is going to be looked at as a sheriff's sale, because the fact of bodies and people to do something like this, we already have office staff doing, frankly, 2 or 3 jobs apiece, where I don't know how we managed to do that, to be frank.
Yeah, we'll just muddle through it and maybe get a hold of Ben just to make sure we got all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed, to make sure it's not a sheriff's sale, and if the county gets in and does this, it's not a liability. And I can see where we have more discussions later on how we're going to tackle this. What do you think, Commissioner Gross?
I'm still reeling from what the legislature has done. Hopefully there's enough pushback that they reconsider the practicality of this. Because it doesn't seem like it's very practical. They've levied a huge burden onto us without giving us any resources to pay for it.
And on that note, the law technically has gone into effect. So I guess I'm also looking at for guidance as far as, are we going to just this gets into speculation. I would assume there's somewhat of a grace period typically with these types of things as we try to figure out how to even implement something that seems to be incredibly difficult to implement. But as far as some sort of timeline to try to have something in place, just something to think about when it's
Okay.
doing this.
And we'll get with Ben on that to see what he thinks the timeline and whether. Okay.
But in the short term, Nickerson's will continue and just store vehicles there. And my deputies are starting after this meeting with you guys, assessing value and submitting packets in the way that the state requires. So now the ball is rolling.
NADA, I think we used to use that a lot. I think it's a paid service. It might be a free service. So.
So I was unaware of that. So it's probably going to be Blue Book then.
Blue Book or any, they used to have a free site, but we used to have, when it was books, they used to send us books and that's what we had to value vehicles on, so. Okay.
Okay, so this thing kicked in when?
I'm going to have the date slightly, I think around July 1st, July 15th, something around that.
Okay. Well, what were you hoping to get from the commission today?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So it's a little bit informative. Also to say that this is happening, but also if these sales are taking place, I'm assuming even Peggy's going to have to, the clerk's going to have to set up a fund for this, for all these funds coming in. So then we can siphon the funds out because that's going to be a piece of this. So the county's going to have a healthy workload when it comes to this. So dealing out the $50 refunds to the tow company, the $50 refunds to us, and then the overages getting that to ITD and the tracking system as well.
How many cars a year did we, like last year? What's a year look like for the sheriff's office?
I was told historically 30 to 45, which is pretty significant when they start to build up.
Oh, yeah.
And then also,
Car lot.
obviously when arrests are made, when they don't come pick up their car, that would be additional cars.
And what about on the freeway? Is that up to the state of Idaho? Can we request that? But hey, that's your jurisdiction. That's your. I mean.
So I've actually already done that because in the past we've actually helped them with just out of friendly courtesy. I did already instruct our patrol deputies, not because we don't want to help, but we really just can't. So on all state highways, we will not be towing vehicles. They just have a bigger agency and a lot more resources. So we are going to assist in that, and my deputies are aware of that.
So that could cut down the 30 to 45 a little bit.
It may. I don't know how much they're assisting with those in the past, but it may. I would put us around 30 a year, even with that.
Times $50.
Ooh, times $50, yeah. And then if we do make more money, we give it back to the state.
Mm-hmm. That's
ITD,
how
I
most of
believe.
these state rules work. Okay, so county gets the short end of the stick, it appears.
Again.
Yeah.
All right.
And I will say there's massive pushback across state from sheriff's departments, from other departments, because it's pretty much unanimously agreed this is very bad. But when they get it to a point to repeal it or back, I mean, we could be talking 2 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
At best, we've got another 6 or 8 months, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any good news?
The weather's amazing out today, so
Very,
that's a win. On this topic, I've been pulling what little hair I have left out, talking with ITD bosses and stuff about it, and it's a little frustrating how little answers they have as well. And also, at one point, they even told me that if tow companies refuse, then essentially say we'll take them off tow lists and stuff. Which I'm like, we're not doing that. We're not coercing businesses. So Because that is an option in the future. If tow companies refuse to tow abandons, we just have abandons sitting around. So, thankfully, we have people that are cooperative and helpful with it.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Wish it was better.
May I ask a question?
Well,
Okay.
just second, and I'll go around the room.
Oh, what, sorry?
Yeah, I was going to ask if we have any public comment. Public comment.
Yes, go ahead, let him go because I do have a question, but now you put me on the spot.
So, go ahead.
I apologize for being late, but I didn't have any cavities, so I'm happy on that
That's good.
respect. I live up Burke Canyon Road, about 6 miles up. And I like the canyon. I don't have any gripes about any of the people and everything, but the amount of cars that are on the properties and maybe on the easement that will never be driven again is really an eyesore. And we do get tours up there occasionally to tour the mine area and everything, and it's really, I think it's unsightly. Apparently, it doesn't bother some of the residents there, but past Jen is, about 3 or 4 miles up, there's just a whole bunch of these cars. Now, can they be asked to at least move some of these cars off of the easement, which you have authority over, I would think? Or is there anything, it's a private property and all of that. But anyway, can you give me any thought of how the canyon could look a little bit nicer with less abandoned vehicles?
So I would suggest, well, the abandoned vehicles, from what you're saying, is appearance on private property and whatnot in general, and that would be a blight complaint. So you can actually essentially apply for a blight complaint on that residence, whichever one you're speaking of, or multiple.
I don't want to go around doing complaints about the people that live up there,
So
that would be the only way to do it?
yeah, on private property, and I know it's frustrating, but it is somewhat to also protect people's rights.
Sure.
The sheriff's office, it can't just essentially show up and say, hey, clean up your yard. You know what I mean? Like that would be kind of an overstep of law enforcement.
What about on the
Not
easement?
approved.
What about on the easement that's right next to the road?
I'd have to see it. If you're talking where they can normally park, and if it's their property or not, I'd have to see the one you're speaking of to speak to it, frankly. So if you would like to call the sheriff's office and ask a deputy to come up there and take a look for you, we can definitely do that. But it would be a case-by-case basis. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, okay.
I apologize.
Lori,
Okay,
anything?
so, Mike, we need to think about the whole take him to Nickerson's as we've been doing. Because like you said, after 60 days, the state we no longer charge for that, right?
We can't. No one can, according
Right.
to the state. That's
So, how generous and for how long is Nickerson gonna be? You had said something about, the sheriff, you have some property.
Mhm.
I think that would be something we really need to look at as quickly as possible.
And that's where I talked to Chad Nickerson, and he said that for now, I mean, he doesn't seem to have a problem continuing on. He does have a lot of space at the moment. Depending how the sheriff sales or county sales shake out, and how much, if there's actually money being made, and this is going to take way more complicated process to make happen, but that's kind of where I was going with the county yard, which you're getting at, is hypothetically, and this is something to ask Ben, I'm not pitching this because I don't know if the legalities, but we charge storage fees, and that way we can actually recoup the cost. I wasn't ready to pitch that because of the idea of, I don't know
I think
some
we
of
need
those
to be
avenues.
cautious of his generosity
Mhm.
because that we need him.
And
And
I've
we need him to do it for the $50 or the
Yeah.
$45. So if we're like using and abusing,
and I let him know that directly in the phone call with him, saying I completely understand.
did you say no?
That's exactly what I told him, and to let me know, and hopefully with a little bit of advance, if this is becoming a problem, because I see this becoming a problem. And I did let him know that if we were to go in the county yard though, Where initially, right now, he does it for free and recoups the cost from the vehicles. I think Jim's does as well. It would be a matter of, okay, we pay them a regular tow rate, the county, and then we of course recoup that from abandoned and storage fees to be fair. That answer your question?
Yeah, I
It's a
just,
great question.
cause I worry, cause they are so generous.
Yes, they are.
And then we have to be careful with, well, they're doing it with, good control thing. Yeah, I just need to be cautious about that, cause he is so generous.
I completely agree.
Okay, well, we've got to wrap this up because we've got another meeting in 2 minutes. So, is there anything further, Commissioner?
No.
Thank you for being the
Thank
bearer
you.
of bad news.
All right.
Appreciate it, Captain. We're adjourned.
Never seen her at all.